Alright, so the final step of phase 5 of turn 2 is rearming and refueling planes. So these are now refueled along with the patrol aircraft on Midway. So move those markers over there, that way I don't have to get refuels. Alright, we're good. The last phase is clear the decks, but no one landed, so they are clear, and we are on to turn 3, which we may as well just keep this video rolling. No victory. Command tokens we determined. No one lost any ship or any carriers or the airbase on Midway, so we keep going there. Reinforcements. The U.S. obviously wants to bring in that last carrier. So we are going to take out one of the U.S. tokens and move that carrier into position. Alright, set the carrier ops status, so these will move all off. There's no need to launch these yet because there are no U.S. planes other than those bombers, and I'm not going to use them against those 2 bombers. No need to spot any aircraft on deck. Or nor land for the Japanese. Now the U.S. has 2 carriers on the board, so they're going to want to get some planes in the air. Now, right now, there is a large Japanese air group, well, 2 air groups, 2 spaces away from their carriers. So odds are Japan is going to keep spotting one of those 2 carriers, so they're going to launch all their fighters. They could launch one more plane, but then it would be out there hanging by itself with nothing much to do. But you know what? We could harass some stuff with it. So let's launch 1 torpedo bomber along with the 4 fighters from each one of those. Assuming we're getting our 2 tokens. Alright, so that'll be the end of that. We are going over to the map for phase 2, conducting search operations. Alright, so here is the map after that battle. We've got our 2 hits on the carrier. These are the surviving planes. Their fuels will go to out of fuels at the appropriate time. And that battle did not go as historical battles went on the first attacks on the Japanese carriers. And typically, most times the U.S. does not get a hit on these first rounds of battle. It's just kind of how it works out. But not today. So we have resolved our attacks. Score victory points. That's nothing because you have to sink it. Return to base. Was there a miss on a patrol aircraft? No. So that nothing. Oh, so that means these planes here now have to fly back because they are out of fuel. So they move their 3, and the next turn they actually get to their carriers, and then they have to land. And that's where the U.S. planes coming in to create a problem. Burn fuel markers. So these actually go to no fuel. I don't have enough no fuels out. These go down to 2. I haven't put them on their markers yet, but I'll do that here as I clean things up. And then all these tokens, because nothing was damaged, will go back in the cup for the next turn. Alright, so we are back for phase 5 air unit maintenance. Time to rearm bombers. We don't have to do that. We don't have to refuel anything. Clear the deck. So we didn't have anything land, but since these did not get to launch, they have to go back down below deck. And that is the end of turn 3. We're on to turn 4 now. So we will go on to victory conditions. None yet. Command tokens. Japan has 2 damage on a carrier. The U.S. has 2 damage on Midway, so they are fully operational as far as command tokens go. So yeah, they're all in there. Alright, determine reinforcements. This is a part where Japan has to decide if I want to use those planes to attack or bring in reinforcements, because that's going to take 2 of my 4 tokens, and as you can see as that last turn goes, Japan only got 1 move. So I think we'll not bring any reinforcements in for Japan. The US is done with reinforcements, so we don't have to do that again. Alright, so set carrier operations. Well, everybody's landing here, so we're recovering planes like nobody's business. The US now has 3 full carriers that can launch. Here's where Japan starts to feel the pinch on this one. So we know that Japan has got 6 dive bombers coming at us, so we kind of have to defend our carriers. So we're going to play this card again with that carrier. This carrier, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to launch 5 dive bombers off the Hornet. Put that on there because that last one's. And then we're going to do our fighters and 1 torpedo bomber here as well. Just to try and defend. And I think that'll be it for the U.S. carrier operations, if they get that many tokens. Alright, so we've spotted our planes on deck that are going to launch land aircraft. So I'm just going to bring them all over here and I will set them up between between the switching cameras here. There's going to be a ton of editing on this. As you can see, all these planes are, well, that's it. All those are landing. There's no US planes to land at this point. And we will move now to the map for phase 2. So here's an example of a operational error. Had I used the fighters from these 2 carriers, which would be the orange and red chips, at this beginning of this turn in phase 1, they could have landed because I have nothing to launch. So I wasted an opportunity to land, because at the end of this turn they're going to move here and they're going to have to land next turn, then they're going to refuel. So they're going to be a turn behind. That's an operational error, and that's really what this game is about, is the carrier operations, not just the landing and refueling and rearming, but the planning ahead to land at the appropriate time. So I blew that one. That I'm going to chalk it up to the filming, but it's just a game error. The other error, I've got these attack bombers, and they are armed with bombs to hit Midway as historical. I did not leave them below and turn them over to torpedoes, where they have a higher attack value against ships. So now I think I'm going to make the assumption is they're going to go hit Midway, and then the dive bombers and the fighters are going to go hit one of the carriers and take my chances instead of that large combined group, because the attack value of those guys with bombs is a 2. So it's not very likely I'm going to get any hits. I guess I could use some of those to soak up damages, but if I take out the airbase at Midway, then that's the same as sinking a carrier. So and I may, if the US gets all its fighters up, I may just send everything to Midway and be done with that. So just a little instructional part there. So phase 2, patrol aircraft. So Midway has 1 that can launch. It is refueled. He'll fly out here to Sea Zone 2. We got this one here that's been trying to maintain contact here. This one's going to go up here. Well, it still can't. 1, 2. He's just going to go there. This guy's going to try and shadow this carrier group, which means if this carrier group moves, he goes with it. So that's just a good plan. And then these 2 will also do the shadowing. So Japan is first on the rolls. So Japan now gets 3 dice to the US 1. So, and it's just, you know, highest dice wins. So a 2 for the US. So this first carrier is shadowed. So we'll put that patrol plane on the disc, or the, not disc, it's a chip, but it's the chip that's on the task force marker. Alright, so the second Japanese, a 2 again, so not very good. So the US is spotted like crazy. And that'll be it. The US now will get its 3 on 1 for this carrier that they attacked. An 8, they lose. No, vice versa, Japan loses, so they are shadowing. We're going to remove a dice, and they're going to try and spot them again. And I didn't hold it up right, but they were successful. So he's unhidden and spotted for a 3rd time. I don't think Japan's going to get the tokens to do everything they want to do this turn, so we are on to drawing command tokens. Alright, so the US is just down 1. Oh, they didn't bring their carrier on. Because all those Japanese planes are there, we're going to bring it up here. Although we could bring it up here into 4. Maybe we could get... Well, no, we don't want to get close to that battleship group. So we're going to leave it there. We may have to start running US ships away. Alright, first command token is Japan. Alright, decision time. We're going to assume that the US is going to get 2 tokens and launch those fighters to cover that. So we're going to send part of our air group there. I can't send these guys here because to be an air group you have to stay in the same beginning and ending zones. So that'll be another chip to get my fighters there. And that's just to provide escort for these torpedo bombers. Or dive bombers, I should say. Alright, the next one is... Whoops, it fell out. What is it? US. So they will launch, obviously. We're going to launch the Hornet. And they've got 4 fighters and 1 torpedo bomber. The torpedo bomber can only fly 2. So it's going to fly up to here. We're going to make a run at the battleship, I guess. Next turn. Although we could go here. The problem with that is these fighters, well, they can still go up there, so it doesn't matter. Alright, next token. See? That is the problem. It's not a problem, it's the game mechanics. You never know just how many operations you get to, or how many command tokens you get to use. So now there's going to be no US attacks. They're going to hit Midway, and these guys, they're on combat air patrol. They got movement or fuel of 3, so they'll be up there for a couple turns. These guys are going to drop to a 1, and next turn, if they don't get a command token, then they have to come back and land. So a whole bunch of chaos there, but that does buy the Japan planes returning time to land, so that'll be good there. So let's do that Midway battle. There's no need to set up the battle board because there are no US defending fighters. So all 7 of these attack bombers will be attacking. There is 1 US, let me grab it here, 1 US anti-aircraft gun available, so that they're only going to get the 1 shot, and I don't know what that is. Let me look here. I think it's a 3. Oh, it's a 4. So the US anti-aircraft at a 4. Of course. So they hit one. No, I want to lose orange because that carrier is diminished in its operations. So we lose a Japanese bomber. That makes them with 6 at 4. Unfortunately, I got to have all but one hit. 1. Roll this one again. 2. Only 2 hits. So they'll lose that last anti-aircraft gun. No, they won't. They'll take 2 hits on that airfield. That way they still have an anti-aircraft shot to come back if there's another attack on that island, which I don't think there will. Alright, so that is the end of the combat. I've got to get 2 damage markers for that airfield. I'll put that on there. Return to base. So now these planes have to go back to Midway. 1, 2, 3. These planes go back to their carrier. And I think, oh, these planes will also go back to their carriers. And they've moved. That is it. We'll pick up these tokens and put them back in the jar. Burn some fuel. These guys are going to go to a 1 now. And that is the only fuel to burn because these guys have to land. They were in combat. Alright, so let's go over to the carrier operations boards. Alright, so we're back for search operations, turn 4. And hopefully I'm not getting that camera out of alignment. I'm having to almost get on top of the table to turn it on. So anyway, Japan goes first. They have 2 that they're going to continue shadowing. So in C-Zone 6, they need to be to 7. They do not. So, oh, I don't have any more out of fuel markers. I have to get, well, I'll steal that one from there. So we know that that Japanese plane has to return. Alright, so the next Japanese plane in C-Zone 17 has to beat an 8. They got an 11, so they continue to shadow. So that carrier is now under threat. The U.S. is going to try and shadow here in the south, shadow here. They're going to move up to here to try and find that one, and this one is going to go 1, 2 to try and replace anybody that fails on their search. Alright, so shadowing here. Oh, try and keep it, the dice the same for each nation. Alright, so Japan wins with a, well, nope, a 12. It's a tie, so they shadow. Tie goes to the patrol aircraft. Well, that's a bummer. Japan rolling a 12. Same thing up here. 10, 10. So they continue to shadow. And now here, we're going to remove a dice. They're going to attempt to spot the battleships. And they do not. So that one fails. So let me take that other out of fuel marker. And now that guy's got to return. Alright, that is the end of the search phase. We will do the tokens. Everyone is at full strength. And first up is the U.S. So they are going to launch. We're going to get our fighters in the air and put them on combat air patrol. Oh, we didn't burn our fuel marker last turn on that one. The reason is the U.S. has a special tactic or technology called radar. You may have heard of it. Radar allows the U.S. planes to intercept one space away from the carrier. So these planes all go here. They can intercept as well as the planes that are there. So that would be 8 U.S. fighters against 3 Japan fighters and 6 dive bombers. So there's a huge decision there for Japan to be made. And what carrier was that? Blue? They also launched a torpedo bomber. And when I launched this one, I didn't put a marker, so that would be a 2. This one just launched, it's a 3. Alright. It's kind of hard playing both sides of this at once. Japan, alright, decision time. Attack a massively defended carrier. Or possibly take out Midway. They only have 2 hits. I think that's what we will do. We'll go in and try and remove Midway and take away a command token for the US. That is our plan. Metal. Good thing. Let me explain why. My other option was to send this flight group into here. I would not have had another medal chance because the round ended. My second token would have been to send these fighters to protect them. So all 6 would have went in there against 8 fighters and then all the ship anti-aircraft. That would have been a disaster. So that panned out for Japan. Alright, so once again, no need to set up the battle board here for Midway Island. We have 1 anti-aircraft shot. Oh my gosh. Which ship is damaged here? I think it's the orange, so that doesn't matter. We'll lose 1 of the yellows. And now we have 5 torpedo or dive bombers at 6. Just needing 2 hits. And 1, 2. Wow, that's all we got. Alright, so Midway is now knocked out. Let me go get a marker so we know. Midway is now toast. Don't need those damage markers there. So that means Japan now has the first victory point of the game. Next turn, the 1 transport group can come on. Alright, so that's the end of the combat. So, resolve victory points. We did that. We added 1 to Japan. Phase 5, return to base. We have this U.S. seaplane. Now, Midway has an airfield and a seaplane base, so they can still conduct operations out of that seaplane base. Plus, the air base always gets a minimum of 1 plane to launch each turn, so they're going to be piecemeal for the rest of the game. What other? Oh, this Japanese has to return to this group here where the cruiser is. Alright, burn fuel. So now this guy, I should have got some out of fuel markers. He goes to a 1, he goes to a 2. This 3 goes to a 2, those go to a 1. And I need an out of fuel for this group. And that should be it for here. We will now go to the carrier operations cards to finish the turnout. Alright, so we have made it to the end of turn 4. We've returned airplanes to base, burned the fuel markers on the map. Now we're back at the carrier operations cards where we rearm bombers, but we did not have any of those because the ones that are below the deck are all ready to go. So now we clear the deck. So the planes that landed will go below deck. And I'm going to leave 2 fuel markers, or that out of fuel on these 2 fighters, because this one's ready to go. Same here, only I think it's 3 fighters. Alright, and then all these, you know, you got to rearm them anyway, so all 4 of these need to be refueled. Alright, for the US, and we are clearing the deck, so they haven't landed yet. They have just got back to their base, so they'll land at the beginning of turn 5. Alright, that is the end of turn 4. We're on to 5. And let's move those markers. I don't know if those are going to help me or not, but can't hurt when you're doing as much video editing as this is going to take. Check for victory conditions. Japan is 1-0. So if I were to quit the game right now, Japan wins. Determine command tokens. So this is where we're going to take one of the US tokens out for the remainder of the game, for Midway is destroyed, the airbase anyway. And sometimes that's the better option to get the advantage on the US. Now it just happened to work out token wise, you know, how they were drawn in those first couple turns. Alright, so we're going to set our, well, first determine reinforcements. Japan really should, because they're going to get the transports, so they're going to have to take this turn. We're going to have to take 2 tokens out of the cup for reinforcements, and so that means it's going to be 2 to 3. You know, I seem to be missing one here. Let me look and see what I got here. I have to edit this out. So I'm missing 1 US token. Oh, it's on the map. Alright, now we're ready. Alright, so the Japanese will bring in a carrier group and one of the transport groups. So now Midway's in trouble of being invaded. But that costs Japan 2 command tokens on this turn, but they'll get those back next turn. I'll just put them on the map so we remember. Alright, set the carrier operations. Alright, so let's pull these off. We have nothing to recover. What do we have here? Nothing to land either, so we can launch if we want to. Well, we can't launch. All of our bombers don't have bombs. They got to be rearmed. So we're going to leave those open. There is only 2 US torpedo bombers in the air, and they cannot reach our carriers. So we're going to leave those open. So the US, though, they're going to launch planes. So there's no attack coming. These would have had to have gone back at the end of the turn. I missed that. So the US is going to, they're going to launch off the blue carrier, which is what, the Enterprise, because I have fighters out there. So if I get 2 tokens, I can combine them into a group. 2, 4, 5. So 5 torpedo bombers go up. Not torpedo bombers, dive bombers. They would have had to have gone back, but I'll bring them back up. And then from the green carrier, we're going to save our fighters because there's no Japanese attack coming for at least 2 turns. So we'll launch 5 of those dive bombers. So that is that. Spotter aircraft on deck, we did that. Land aircraft, so I won't show that, but the Japanese patrol aircraft will land on that cruiser and it will be available. These guys here land, and it's going to be tough for those planes to get off of Midway at 1 at a turn, but they can always use those to replace US carrier planes lost. So that is the good news there. Take that over there. Alright, so we have landed aircraft, and now it is time for phase 2, search operations.